This video will be on graphing from standard form. But before we get to the graphing part, let's just take a look at what standard form is. Standard form is ax plus by equals c, but there are certain rules that have to be followed for it to be standard form. The number one rule is that a, b, and c are integers. They're positive or negative whole numbers. They can also be zero. And in parentheses there, technically, a shouldn't be a negative number. I don't know why they have that rule. I think it's just to make it look nicer. Also, a and b cannot both be equal to 0, because if you had that, there wouldn't be any line to graph. Let's take a look at some examples of standard form. And we'll start with 3x minus 2y equals 18. That is standard form. Right below it, we have x plus 5y equals negative 4. That's not technically standard form because there's no number in front of the x. But if we add the 1, now it's technically standard form. Next up, we got negative 4y equals 9. Now, that doesn't look like standard form because there's no x value. So to write this in standard form, you would rewrite it as 0x minus 4y equals 9. And then our last one, y equals 1/2 x minus 3, that's slope-intercept form. That's y equals mx plus b. So if you needed standard form, you would have to go ahead and move the x to the left side, and you get negative. Actually, you know what? I'm going to do it different. You could do that, but the big key is getting rid of all the fractions or decimals. So the first thing I'm going to do here is get rid of that 1/2. So to get rid of 1/2, the 2 on the bottom is kind of like dividing by 2. So I'm going to multiply everything by 2 on both sides. That gives me 2y is equal to x minus 3. All right, I'm going to get the x over on the left side. So I get negative x plus 2y equals negative 3. In my mind, this is pretty good for standard form, but if we want to be technical, we need to get rid of that negative with the x, and we also are going to make it a 1. So if I multiply everything by negative 1, I'm left with 1x plus, no, take that back, minus 2y equals positive 3. So if you're given this, that's slope-intercept form. This converts down to standard form. So let's start with an equation here. 3x minus 6y equals negative 12. All right, so that is standard form, and we're going to use standard form to graph it. So the key to graphing from standard form is you're going to use x and y intercepts. So you might remember that if you want to know the x-intercept, then that means that your y value equals 0. If you want to know the y-intercept, then that means your x value equals 0. So we want to find the x-intercept, y-intercept. So x-intercept, if I wanted to, I could write 3x minus 6 times 0 equals negative 12. But I'm going to focus on just this and this. I'm going to focus on that because I know that that negative 6 times 0 would just go away. It would just equal 0. So I'm just going to write 3x equals negative 12. And there's my one-step equation to solve. Divide both sides by 3, and we get x equals negative 4. So our x-intercept is negative 4. If I want to write the point for that, remember technically, I made y equals 0. So that is my x-intercept as a coordinate. All right, for the y-intercept, I would get fancy here with our highlighting. With the y-intercept, I'm going to focus on the y value in this. Now, that's my highlighting right now would lead you to a mistake. If you write 6y equals negative 12, it's not going to work. Make sure that you realize that negative sign is absolutely part of finding the y-intercept. So we are going to use our equation of negative 6y equals negative 12. Divide both sides by negative 6, and you get y equals 2. You can also just try to think backwards here. Negative 6 times what equals negative 12, and it would be negative 6 times positive 2. So remember, in this case, we would have let the x equal 0, and our y is 2. So with 2 points, you can always graph a line. And on the next page, I'll get a graph out so that we can graph some lines. But just if we want to do this quickly, just a quick sketch. The numbers aren't large, so I can actually just put in some things here. So I need an x value of negative 4. I'm just going to go 1, 2, 3, 4. And my y value is positive 2. So this graph doesn't look all that great, but I'm actually modeling. When you guys are just practicing this out, you could do something as quick as I just did there without making this super pretty graph. So then I would just be able to put a point at, if I can get my pen to work, I can put a point, oh, that's an ugly point, at negative 4, and then a nicer point at positive 2. So now all we got to do is connect these, because if you have 2 lines, 2 points, you have a line. And we just graph that without converting it to y equals mx plus b. All right, this time we have a nice graph set up. So let's take a look at what if you have 4x plus 2y equals 16. Okay, so it's in standard form. We're going to go ahead and figure out our x and y intercepts and use those 2 points to graph the line. So X-intercept, Y-intercept. If I want the X-intercept, I'm letting y equals 0, and I know that's just going to leave me with 4x equals 16. If I want to find my y-intercept, I would let the x equals 0, and that would give me 2y equals 16. Everything here is positive, so I don't have to worry about forgetting a negative sign. All right, let's solve these. The 4x equals 16, divide by 4, and we get x equals 4. And that would mean that officially my point is 4, 0. And if we divide by 2 on the other one, we get y equals 8. And that would mean that I let x equal 0 and my y value is 8. Put these on your graph and you have a line. So 4, 0 is right there, and 0, 8 is up towards the top. 2, 4, 6, 8. And then if I draw a line through there, I would have my graph. And that was wonderful right at the end. So you get the idea. Next problem, why don't you guys go ahead and pause the video and see if you can go ahead and write down what is your X-intercept, what is your Y-intercept, and then use those to draw your line. All right, so here's what you should have come up with. By the way, I'll show you if you don't really feel like writing everything out. If you want to label your X-intercept and your Y-intercept, you have to know that when you do your X-intercept, Y is 0. When you do your Y-intercept, X is 0. If you do this setup, Now, if you want to just think through it, instead of writing out 2x plus 2x equals 6, I know if I made y 0, I would be solving 2x equals 6, and x would have to be 3. 2 times 3 equals 6. And if I make the x 0, then that would get rid of, wait, here we go. That would get rid of that, and we'd be left with y equals 6. Okay, so there's our x-intercept, there's our y-intercept. X-intercept is at 3, 0. Y-intercept is at 0, 6. And again, if I want to make this look nice, I realize that I'm going down 6 and over 3. That's negative 2. Then we just had one with negative 2. I guess we got it again. All right. Negative 2 would be down 2 over 1, down 2 over 1. And you can see that it matches up with my x and y intercept. There's another point. Well, if I can get this. There's another point above. And I'll do one more below. And then carefully try to draw an acceptable line. All right, that's what you guys should have gotten.